Good morning. So I'm going to continue the talk from yesterday by Vimala Thakar. As far as the discovery of truth is concerned, one does not provoke the mind to function. One does not induce the mind to function. One allows it to be in abeyance. We do not fight against the mind. We don't try to suppress its activity. You know, when you understand the truth, you do not have to suppress anything. I see a beautiful bottle in a shop, and there is a liquid of a very attractive color in it. I am attracted. I walk towards it with the intention of taking the bottle from the shelf and drinking the liquid. I read the label poison. I do not have to make any independent effort to withdraw my intention or to suppress it. The very understanding operates upon my total being. The intention and the desire to acquire it ceases to be. I don't have to drop it or suppress it. In religion, there is nothing to give up. There is nothing to acquire. One has to understand the truth as it is and falsehood as it is. We do not induce the mind to experience the state of silence. Silence is not an experience of the mind. It's not a state of mind. It's a dimension of the total being. It is a growth into which the person grows totally, and there's no returning from it. There's no going into and coming out of it. There's no stimulating and subsiding of it. It is there. So one does not try to induce states of silence and try to acquire the experience of silence. The craze for experiencing is a mental activity, and that craze comes to an end. It comes to an end as a result of understanding the nature of mental activity. That way, one allows the mind to be silent. For people living in the industrial civilizations, it is difficult even to relax physically. One has not been educated in the way to relax physically or to breathe in a relaxed way. So even physical relaxation becomes a mental action, an act of will. Relaxation, which should be a natural state of our being, has become complicated. The simplicity and beauty of relaxation is converted into an ugly complexity. The whole of America and Europe cannot turn to the caves of the Himalayas or Greece. It will be escaping and not facing the problem. We have to face the problem. Out of the complexity, we have to grow into maturity. This is the context in which we have to learn how to relax physically first. We will have to have self-education. We will have to educate ourselves. We might have to educate ourselves how to sit, how to breathe, how to eat, how to stand up, and how to walk. People think that spirituality or liberation is somewhere far away from the mainstream of life. It has nothing to do with how I eat or walk. But as we said in the beginning, life is one indivisible whole. You cannot create watertight compartments in it. You cannot divide it into mundane and spiritual, secular and religious. It is one whole. Religious action is an act done in total awareness, not passively, not mechanically, but with full awareness. Then there is a rhythm in the physical movement. When you more when you breathe in a rhythm, you will see that already the nervous tension has become less tense. You cannot learn relaxation if you are tense for 23 hours and spend 1 hour learning relaxation. We cannot divide life like that. Meditation or liberation is a total way of life, has to revolutionize everything we do. One learns to use the mind properly when one has to use the mind. One does not misuse it. It does not, we do not use it impulsively or irrationally. The mind has so much more speed than all the cars, ships, and aeroplanes, all that we have created. Today, the distance between India and the USA is shrinking because of the aeroplanes. By ship, you could do that distance in 20 days. Now you do it in a few hours. The space and the distance are shrinking. If you have more speed, then instead of 20 hours, you might do it in 20 minutes. Mind has got infinite speed to travel from place to place. You will see that the infinity of motion and eternity are the same. These are not just concepts. Let not the mind try to reduce even this fact to a theory or concept. The mind has to be used in a healthy way. For example, I should speak when verbal communication is necessary and not for gossiping. If I gossip, I misuse the capacity of speech as well as the intellect and the mind. If I am brooding unnecessarily over past experiences, pleasant and painful, I am misusing the mind. I'm violating the sanctity of memory, which is a very sacred capacity. Every movement of the mind should be made when it is warranted. When the mind is used only when it is inevitable to use it, and when the mode of operation is also scientific, sane, and healthy, much of the tension is reduced, and your mental movement becomes a relaxed movement. When you talk, you do not talk out of disturbance, out of temper, or envy, jealousy, or agony, but you speak and act out of comprehension of the subjective and the objective reality. We began this evening by saying that as long as the myth of time is not exploded and the time-bound action of the mind is not transcended, freedom cannot be. We went into exploring how every mental action is only a reaction. Patterns of reaction are called culture. Then there is a comparison, an evaluation, and a selection, and so we go on. It is time-bound action. Then we spoke about the relative reality of chronological time and the myth of psychological time invented by the mind. We found out how the ego takes the help of the myth of psychological time to create its defense mechanism and how it creates the whole structure, sits at the center, and controls every movement. You find out that every action of the mind strengthens the ego. So discovery of the truth cannot be a mental action. It cannot be an ego-centered act. Then we spoke further and said that concentration is an exclusive activity which removes you from the main current and stream of life. So we have to allow all mental activity to come to an end. In the cessation of mental activity, silence as a dimension of life becomes alive. End of the talk. Question. As the ego is so all-pervasive and powerful, will not the intention to meditate be overpowered by the ego? Vimala. Will not meditation become a function of the ego? Look, sir, how can the ego function when there is nothing to acquire or to obtain? The ego moves when there are two things. One, a motivating force, and two, the direction in which the ego can move. Without a direction, the ego cannot move. The ego can function when we concentrate. It is a mental action. In meditation, in the realm of mindlessness, the ego cannot function. That is the beauty of meditation. There's nothing that the ego can do. No ego-centered action is possible because it is not a mental action. I do not have to meditate. Meditation is a state of awareness into which mind or ego has no scope to function. How can it be overpowered by the ego? Do you see the beauty of it? It is the cessation of total mental activity. Question. I was wondering if yoga could be used to acquire truth. Vimala. The questioner says, I wonder if yoga could be helpful in, the questioner, acquiring, Vimala, in arriving at, not acquiring. There's nothing to be acquired. That is the beauty of truth. Man has tried to acquire it, but God, the truth or reality, has defied all human efforts to catch it. Are you asking, sir, whether yoga can be helpful in arriving at that state of freedom? Yes? What do we mean by yoga? Yoga is a very wide and comprehensive term. Firstly, it's a Sanskrit word. The root of the word means to unite. Any system which can help a person to get united to the roots of his existence is called yoga. If you do it through devotion, call it bhakti yoga. If you do it through knowledge, they call it jnana yoga. If you try to do it through concentration and meditation, they call it jhana yoga. If you try to do it through action or karma, they call it karma yoga. If you try to do it by purification of the whole biological and psychological system, it's called hatha yoga. So there's so many systems. What do we exactly mean when we use the term yoga? In the West, somehow the word yoga has been limited to hatha yoga, purification of the biological system, and developing certain powers to have transcendental experiences. Questioner. What is the physical use of yoga today? As a physical exercise for relaxing and purification of oneself? Vimala, it might purify and beautify the biological system. It can help one to learn the scientific rhythm of breathing. You know, breath is the most purifying force. If one learns pranayama, and there are 12 ways of pranayama, inhaling, inhaling, exhaling, and retaining the mathematical proportion between these three, one can purify the whole physical structure. It can give you longevity, it can beautify the biological system. It can also help in soothing the nervous system, which is misunderstood for peace of mind. Yes, but who is going to change the society? How do societies get changed? Social relationships, which are extensions of our individual ambitions and passions and drives. After all, when such individual sentiments, feelings, ambitions, passions are woven into a texture and get organized, this is what is called society. A man, through a wrong way of living, through a fragmentary way of living, has created the present texture of relationship. If you try to change it through law, through, through force, or through the ballot box, entirely depending upon the bullet or the legislation, does not take you very far. We have seen in both the communist and the non-communist countries that legislation and changing the social and economic context, the political setup, does not change the quality of human consciousness. They do not change the relationship of the human mind with money, property, ownership, the will to dominate, the will to acquire and possess. All this does not get changed by political setups. That way, man has tried running away, getting divorced from society, going to some monastery, creating temples, ashrams. That way also man has tried in the East and in the West. That does not solve the problem either. Running away from life does not solve the problem. Running away from society does not solve the problem, nor does imposing a pattern on the authority of the state to solve it. What is left is you and I as individuals going through a total revolution by ourselves, on ourselves, and becoming living cells of that dynamic, revolutionary, organic process. So while I'm working as a typist, as a secretary, as a cashier in an office, while I'm married, running a family, bringing up children, I have to see if I can go through this psychological revolution, if I can step out of the whole psyche that has been created up till now. That is what I'm saying. These two alternatives are ruled out completely by history. Don't you think so? Questioner. How are you to do this when sitting answering telephones or typewriting? This is such boring work. How are we to do this? Vimala. Either I see it as an inevitable part of the game. Suppose I want to live in the country I'm born and brought up in. Now I have the skill of typing. or I'm working on a telephone, receiving calls. I've accepted it as the minimum kind of contact with society, as I want to earn a decent livelihood and do not want to depend upon others. So I've accepted it. I know that this is a repetitive job, just receiving phone calls and jotting them down, perceiving it is going to be a repetitive work. There will be no release for my creative energy, and doing it 6 or 8 hours a day is going to be the price that I pay for providing the needs of my body. This must be clearly understood and accepted. So I'm going into it voluntarily as the minimum point of contact with society, and I do it. Then there is no tension in doing it. There will be a nervous exhaustion, mind you, that will be there. So that one so that one equips in the morning, one goes through certain exercises, keeps the muscular and the nervous system intact, supple, sharp, and sensitive. One does all that. But those 8 hours, either I pay the price of earning a livelihood this way, because I cannot escape from the country in which I've been born, so I do it. Or I try to find another avenue of earning a livelihood in which there will be some release of the creative energy. It may give me less salary and less comfort, but then I will say, never mind, I will go for a poorer life, but I have more freedom. So one might find out that that way is possible too. But what I'm trying to say is in our industrialized civilization, it seems well nigh impossible to escape a minimum of nervous tension and strain. The stresses and the strains of industrial civilization are bound to be there. But I need not become a victim of the science of advertisement, which is flourishing in these countries. We go on advertising the new fads, the new modes of clothes, new fashions of shoes, and new diets and whatnot. And every month and every season, the people of the rich people in those countries are watching the advertisements. And those commercially minded people employ psychologists to find out the weak points in the subconscious of human beings, how to tempt them, how to get their attention. And the employed psychologists are very heavily paid by businessmen and industrialists. So they try to victimize you and catch your subconscious passions and exploit them. So one sees the whole game and will not be victimized by it. One will not be running away ceaselessly for spending a vacation of 7 days, travel 3,000 miles, exhaust yourself completely, and have such a heavy program hour to hour and minute by minute. By the time you come back to work, you're completely shattered, even though you had a vacation. Those who are organizing the leisure of ordinary persons like you and me, they will also employ psychologists very shortly. They're going to do it. I've seen it in the West European countries in beautiful advertisements. You do not have to worry where to pitch the tent. You have such and such a locality, and the market will be at a short distance. And you will have these entertainments, and there will be concerts. They give you the whole thing. You got a tourist agency, and they've organized your leisure. You do not have to find out anything yourself at all. So, from one passive and repetitive action in the name of vacation, you plunge into the other passivity and follow the schedules of ordinary life. You will not be victimized by all this, you see. Accept the minimum that is necessary. You will be on your guard, and you will not allow anyone to exploit your life, sitting passively for the television for hours together, passively watching. I have nothing to say against television or science and technology. I actually love it, but we do not know how to use them. So hours together, sitting, vicariously living, either on those films in which they show suspense and something to stimulate the sexual urge. And that is how the cult of sex is coming up in the industrialized civilization, getting out of proportion to the totality of life. Everything is becoming sexy. You cannot read any advertisement in which that feeling is not stimulated. So what are we doing with the whole young generation? What are we doing with our own children? Something that melts my heart. But a person like you or me, who is alert, will not be victimized by all this. What I mean by freedom is, if my country asks me to go to war, calling it a just war, I will refuse to do it. If I'm convinced and if I see the futility of killing someone, I will not do it. Not identifying oneself with all that mind has created up till now. It's an adventure. Such revolutionary individuals may lose everything on earth, but at least they will live and die in freedom, which is something much more precious than all the wealth of the world. I hope my reply was relevant. Was my reply relevant? Questioner, I cannot understand your philosophy, or whatever it is. It seems like a cowardly way of life, and it seems like a contradiction. Because firstly, you say that one should learn to observe. Actually, I think it's enough for today. It's a beautiful day in the Netherlands, so I wish you a really good day. Bye for now.